Far Kingdoms podcast with Kevin and Albert. We talk about D&D. So we have our first guest on today.
Hey guys, what's going on?
It's your boy.
So he's Lewis. He plays Storm, and he's generously provided us with our new theme track for the podcast. So thanks for that.
I did. I had to follow up on being a bard and make a song.
It's a
for
bop.
the podcast.
It's a bop. It's a
So
real
Albert, you
bop.
had some questions to ask him about his character specifically.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions, and we're gonna go straight in.
Let's do
Hey,
it.
Storm, what do you think of the campaign? Is it garbage or what?
Well, I'm glad you are. No, I think it's really good. Obviously, I joined around session 18, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And what are we now? 46?
43.
43. And there seems to be a lot of things that happened in the prior 17 sessions with Eisen, Snow, and Tokul. There's not a lot of context there, but within those 18 within the sessions that I've been from 18 onwards, it started with an intro, and Storm is my first character. It's the first campaign that I've played, starting back last year. But it was I think it was a really cool progression. It started and it felt like it was someone's first campaign when I first started. We were going to the Necromancer's tomb, but then you started adding these layers, and we had new players coming in, and the story and the world really built up, and I could feel that throughout the last 6 to 12 months, how long it's
Oh,
been.
you're goddamn right.
And
We were kind of desperate on players before you came in, and then once you came in, it all just kind of we got
And,
overflowed
like
with
4 more
players.
people jumped in.
snowballed, yeah. But I think it's very obvious the world building that's happened around that and the more intricate style of storytelling. And I can you can definitely see that, but you've put more time into it than.
Do you think the same goes for everyone else? Everyone else has kind of upped their game in the last 20 sessions?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's difficult with new players. I feel like I was one of those players. I had a very good idea of what I wanted to do because I've wanted to play D&D since high school, kind of thing. So since I was a teenager.
Yeah.
And I had a very clear idea of what I wanted to do, and I really wanted to jump into that role-playing aspect. And because obviously we knew each other quite well before that, there was no barrier for me feeling embarrassed or anything like that. I didn't really care.
Yeah.
But when we got some of the newer players in who maybe aren't as outgoing or confident in terms of being silly in front of people, maybe
To jump in front of that fantasy train.
yeah, and throwing on voices and acting out as that person rather than as someone controlling or puppeting that person. I think everyone's getting better. I think people are getting more comfortable. I think people are expanding on who they are and learning what their character means to them and means to the world and their place in that. I think it is getting better.
Yes, that is exactly what I want to hear. There's actually something I want to point out later on in regards to that. But for Storm, can we talk about how he came to existence and why he has a fucking Bostonian accent?
He has more of a Jersey accent. It's more
okay,
New York,
okay.
New Jersey kind of Italian, how you doing kind of accent. And oh no, I think it was just before I when I was driving to come to your place to have our sessions, and while I was doing that, and maybe a couple of times when I DM'd, I would practice my voices in the car. And I was trying to figure out what I wanted Storm to be, and I wanted him to be this, outgoing, boisterous, very big character that everyone knew was in the room. When he walked in the room, you knew he was there, kind of person. And being a bard, being a very charismatic person, that obviously matched up. And I thought, I'm British, and I didn't want to do a British voice. and I didn't want to put on that voice because I wanted something a bit different. And whether I'm forcing you to make all tabaxi in our world, New York or New Jersey, or if if Storm got hit in the head when he was younger, or something along those lines. I think it's just one of those things where it was just one of those accents that's big and boisterous, and I wanted to use it.
So it just kind of fit the persona you were going for.
Yeah, and I wanted a hard definition between, some things I find hard in D&D or when we're playing is some players don't have a voice that's very different to their actual voice.
Yeah.
And that's the case for a few of our our party. And I find it hard to determine between, are they speaking as in character or are they speaking as a person? And I like to have as much interaction as possible in character in RP. And I like the idea of having a hard line, like when I'm speaking as Storm or when I'm speaking as me.
That was a pretty big issue at the start of the campaign. I think Sieg, for Eisen, formerly Sieg, he didn't have a different voice for his character, and it was very hard because he would talk in the same way in character and out of character.
Yeah.
Similarly to how Oasis does it now, but I don't know if I've gotten better at distinguishing when people start talking in character. Maybe it's not exactly the same, but yeah, it was an issue.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think now, especially for Oasis, she definitely differentiates when she's playing as Oasis or as herself, because she usually says, like I say, like before whatever she says, it's not just like words that come out of her mouth. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And I think it's part of that development. And once she becomes comfortable with maybe putting on a voice or something like that, just as Ryan, is getting more comfortable putting on his Soviet style Eastern Bloc.
It's beautiful.
Voice. It makes a big difference, and even if it's subtleties, it really defines a character and who they are in the way that they speak. I think Maple, between the player's voice and their actual the player's voice and then their character voice, it's not hyper different in terms of tone, but the way that they say their words, the kind of cadence of their voice all changes. So I do know when Maple's talking and when he isn't.
And
there's a stark difference between the way the player speaks and the way the actual character Maple speaks. I think sometimes I'm hearing like a slight like posh British accent. So I think maybe that's what he's trying to go for, but he might not be fully comfortable in doing that.
And not everyone's a voice actor as well, and that's why if you just do something, if there's a slight change in how you speak, maybe you're not a confident character. Maybe your character is a bit more anxious or and you speak a bit softer, or you speak a bit slower. That kind of thing I think is really cool.
Yeah, I think something Maple does, which I really like, is that, I'm not saying you guys don't do this, but he often narrates his actions, like quite often. Like, oh, I say it like this, or I do this in like a very specific manner. Whereas others kind of act it out, whereas he narrates what his character does. It's a difference, but it still has the same effect, I think, which is really nice to see.
Yeah.
That's like, you find that a lot. I know what you're talking about. It's narrating in third person instead of first person.
Yeah.
I find it more comfortable to narrate in first person, but I don't have a problem with third person. It used to be a pet peeve of mine, but I really don't have a problem with it anymore. But yeah, it's usually a trait of past DMs to narrate their characters in third person because they're just so used to narrating all the NPCs in third person that it just naturally comes about when you play an actual character adventure in game.
Yeah.
I think
going back to the voice, having a voice for your character. I know Kevin has a pretty strong opinion about this, but it helps separate yourself from the character. I know I've heard this so many times from Kevin. It just kind of brings you into the world, and it differentiates you from your character. And it just helps you settle in so much better, and I definitely recommend it. But if you're comfortable doing the third person thing, kind of like Maple, I think that's completely fine too. I don't know, that's just my opinion as DM.
Like a brain trigger to immerse yourself more when it's time.
Should we go into the recap? Oh, sorry, go.
I was going to say, I do agree with what you're saying with the third person. I think the visualization aspect is so big, and whether it's a DM describing the smell of a place as well as the visual aspects, or it's the player saying, you know, they scrunch their face when they're talking, that kind of thing. I think it really helps visualize the situation.
Yeah, it's those minor details that help build the scene. All right. Storm, since you usually do the recaps in the campaigns, do you want to do the one for this?
Do you want me to do it in the
session?
character voice? That's the real question.
It's up to you.
Oh.
I mean, to be fair, I did the last 2 recaps before Storm did the last 2 recaps, and then everyone's saying Storm always does the
Well, that's
recaps.
Because he usually does.
That's because Albert says he tries to get other people to do them, but I'm the default at this point. I try.
Everyone's eyes just go to Storm. Yeah.
I never volunteer for it. I at this point I will never volunteer because I know if no one does, it will come to me.
At least you remember what happens last session. Some people
I don't get the
straight up forget.
What's that
Ooh,
about?
can I drop a bomb?
Yes.
Tokul.
Yes.
Tokul. He's just like, I don't remember what happened last session. I'm just like, oh, my heart, that hurts.
He's a prime suspect for that.
It hurts so much. Like, my DM spirit, like, oh, I guess it wasn't that memorable of a session, huh? I guess you didn't enjoy it that much, huh?
But it was
not a good feeling.
I think that session was really good. Not only
the last few sessions of Tokul have been really good.
Not only you know, Kevin, you drop quite detailed notes for everyone after the end of the session as like a diary basically of each thing. But surely, I mean, I have a book in front of me. I've got it open just in case, but I've got all my notes, and you know, they're notes local to Storm itself, but it still gives me an idea of what's happened and the details of those, you know, that breakdown.
Yeah. I mean, it's just another fault because I think he used to write notes and then he gave up on writing notes because other people were writing their own notes, so he could just leech off of them. So, hey, just write notes.
Yeah, we calling you out.
We
calling you out. All right, Storm, take it away. What happened?
So we started the session. Well, I guess at the end of the last session into the start of this session, it was the conflict between myself and Tokul about Morn, the uncle of Junior and Igmar. And Storm had just walked away from Tokul, saying, you know, I'll if I see him again, I'm going to kill him. And he leaves, and Snow and Tokul try to get rid of him. After investigating around the town, they find out, or Tokul comes to the conclusion that just getting rid of him is probably, you know, it's not going to help him at all. So it's probably best just to kill him. And I mean, Snow, you're a helping hand in this situation, but you're not actually a moral driver. It seemed in this time.
No. And what did you think about that, Albert? Did you throw Tokul a bone because he got a high roll in that prayer he got?
In what aspect?
Like, it's like, so Tokul stands by his decision to let Morn get killed by Storm. And just to fast forward a little bit, basically, Storm kills Morn in a secluded place and chucks his body off the side of the turtle.
Right.
And Snow and Storm go back in the tavern, and Tokul has a walk around the town and then goes into a chapel to Vosny, the god of safe passage. And in that chapel, he makes another prayer to Engvir, saying that, you know, I think I made the right decision. And then he rolled like a 21.
Yeah, he rolled pretty high on that.
And then the next day, the shield of Engvir, or that was a part of the armor set of Engvir, reformed. So that kind of had me thinking that, or maybe you were in favor of what happened, or were you just in favor of Tokul's conviction?
Itself? Yeah. Before I answer that, can I ask you both, do you think Tokul did the right thing in either giving up too easy and letting him die, or what?
I don't think he did, and I told him in character.
Yeah, I honestly thought that he didn't try and pursue the alternate avenues hard enough.
It seemed
too quick to give up.
Once Storm had killed Morn and kind of sought justice, I treated it like his moral or his vision kind of came back a bit. It was less seeing red, and it was more he could think about that situation. And Storm did end that confrontation with Tokul with, just for the record, I think he could have been redeemed if you tried hard enough, basically.
Which is so hypocritical, by the way, coming from
I think
from mass murderer, evil / not evil guy.
I think it is, but I guess we'll explain the reason why it was such a
Yeah,
just a monstrous act. But you know, at the end of the day, this man he's not a good man at all. But to say that he deserved to have his skull crushed in and being pushed off a giant tortoise, maybe not. So I guess it's one of those things, and maybe it was a case where Tokul could have used that religion role, assuming he got the same role, he could have taken Morn to a church and said, pray, and then prayed for this man's salvation or something along those lines.
Okay.
And redeemed him in the eyes of a god and turned him into a holy man or something along those lines. You know, could have happened, but at the end of the day, he stood by his conviction, and he believes he made the right decision, and he was rewarded for that. So Storm apologized the next day when he saw the shield, in a sense of just, well, I guess you were right, kind of thing.
Okay. My take on that whole situation, I'm definitely more on the side of that it wasn't really the outcome of the decision. It's more that he stood by his decision in the end. So rather than just kind of questioning, or did I do the right thing, blah blah blah, it was just a straight, I did the right thing. This is, if like, it doesn't really matter what the god thinks, but I think this is the right thing, and that's why I did it. And I think that's why Engvir did show favor in the end.
And I think that's a really cool outcome as well.
It's unexpected.
Well, I think Tokul was facing adversity with some of his closest friends, you know, his party members. And, you know, I think Storm was really challenging him in that situation. And, you know, he made his decision. And, you know, I think that was a really cool kind of situation for those two characters and Snow as well to kind of go through.
That ugliness kind of reappears a bit later on in the session as well. Did anyone else notice? So after that whole little debacle, that little event, we kind of pan back to Eisen. Yeah. And did anyone see Eisen's player at that point?
No, I wasn't paying particularly attention to that. His screen at the time.
He was very emotional at the scene, I think. Or maybe he was faking it or something, but I don't know. But something about that hit me. He's like, give me a sec. I'm like processing whatever happened.
I remember he said something like that. He did say after the session that scene reminded him of an argument between Snow and Sieg about the fate of another NPC. You know, he wrote that afterwards.
Yeah. That was really interesting to see, and really it kind of warmed my DM heart to see people getting emotional over the game. There's there's so many moments like that in this session. But yeah, well, the outcome was that he got his shield back, or he got his shield kind of back.
It's reformed.
It's not full form, but it's working. It's working. What happens after that, Storm?
So after that, yeah, we pan back to Eisen, as you said, and she has head to the library at the end of the previous session, and she's basically told she needs to return in the morning. Library's closed. It's a college, unless she's a scholar. And Eisen, Snow, and Storm meet. When Snow and Storm are on their way back to the tavern, Tokul's gone for a walk in the city, and that's where he goes to the church. Eisen, Snow, and Storm meet, and Eisen's inquiring what happened. In your note, you say Storm brushes her off, but I believe I told her straight up. I looked around to see if there's anyone there, and I said I killed the dude.
I don't think you
admitted.
Think so. I don't think you admitted it until the next morning.
Mm.
You said something happened, and then you dealt with it. Something along those
very
lines.
Vague.
I didn't want to.
Yes.
And then it wasn't until the next morning until you actually said, "Oh, we killed this person."
Yeah,
I killed this person.
No, you're right. I did that. I did the same thing with Maple as well, actually. More because we were in a public place in a city we don't know than anything else. It wasn't that I was hiding information from Eisen. We then it followed Snow and Storm as we entered the tavern and joined our party at a table having a drink. And a few discussions happened there. Two of them were the two discussions were between myself and Snow, and that was talking about my coin and this pact to a demon that I've made, and what's the worth of what's the worth of power if you have to sacrifice what you love, and that discussion there. And I think Snow was quite genuine in saying you need to watch out for yourself, because there will come a point where you have to make a decision, and you may need to harm or kill or do something to the ones you love or to the things that you love, to reach this goal, which I think was probably the most genuine conversation Snow and Storm have had in a long time.
I love it.
And that conversation actually comes from Snow's experience from early in the campaign. So hint, there's some backstory there.
We'll find that out later.
I actually want to ask you guys about something. So Ryan's player and Maple's player went here for the first part of the session. Well, Ryan wasn't here for the whole session. Are you guys comfortable with them just being voiceless, kind of sitting around not doing anything? Because they were present, but they weren't present in those scenes. Do you know what I mean?
I think that's fine.
Yeah, I'm not so much of a fan of them just not being there, like their characters just not being there. I'm more fine with them just being like a bit quieter and following the party around.
Okay.
And I get you're not comfortable role playing as other people's characters. That's fine. They don't have to talk really, but like I would prefer that they be there just so it doesn't feel, because that kind of takes me out of immersion. They just like hide in their rooms all day. That doesn't really make sense for a character.
Okay, for that there was actually something that was supposed to happen, but it didn't happen. But I can't say it, otherwise it'll be spoilers for probably next session. Okay. So there was a reason. There was a reason. So don't get too upset about that one.
I guess the other way you could do it as well, is if you have players that aren't going to be there, obviously in advance. If you could, in a situation where it permits, for example, we're in a city, if the players are just like, I want my character to go shopping for this, this, and this, then you can actually have a shopping sequence while they're not there. There's a reason that they're gone, like a legitimate reason, and when they come back, they have their potion or their sword or whatever they're getting.
Yeah.
As well.
Like one of the things I was thinking of was just sending Ryan to do like information gathering, or trying to get in contact or find any other Ubanian cells.
Yeah.
In Uria. But yeah, there was another reason for that, which I'll explain next time. Okay.
Yeah. Just don't want it to feel like they're actual game characters that are only, they deactivate, like little robots that deactivate.
Hey, but it's just a game, right, Kevin?
Player 2 is left.
It is just a game.
Just a game.
But you said it yourself. You want it to be more than a game. So I'm trying to go for you. I'm for you.
Yeah, I'm trying to go for you, and it's only a game to me too, huh?
I shut down in real life until D&D starts every week. And then I
happens every night.
I only live for D&D. What did you guys think of Oasis's conversation with you, like right after that?
I think it was good. I think it's one of the most serious times I've spoken with Oasis. She seemed genuinely shooketh by the fact that Water Genasi are getting hunted for a bounty. Within Huria.
That was really good to see.
And I think as my character, I offered what I could and had a look at what I could do, taking out my disguise kit and just chatting, trying to figure out what we could do. And there wasn't,
I put makeup on this?
Yeah, I was like, there obviously wasn't much I could do as myself. But
it was really great to see Oasis starting to stand up as her own character instead of someone who just follows what everyone else is doing, because she's got her own story arc now. So now her characters, she's starting to get propped up by that instead of the other characters.
Yeah, it's really nice to see.
Which is good. And I think because of that, the role play is starting to come more naturally because of that, because she's actually got something to go off.
I
agree with that. Yep.
Yeah, I think it's she throughout this session, I think it's good to say she had genuine concern for her life, kind of thing, the entire time.
Yeah,
I thought was
there
cool
was some really good parts. Yeah, we'll get to that soon. So after that, you guys just all go to sleep, right?
Eisen follows a person through a district.
Oh, right.
They thought they'd seen me killing, me doing weird slams. And Eisen basically follows someone to a warehouse, but it doesn't really come to much. And then it's a long rest basically. Then it sleeps.
Mm.
That night, Tokel's broken god shield reforms. Still non-magical,
right.
but it's a +1 shield or something, so it's still really good.
Technically,
technically it is.
Yeah, technically
It is
plus
still-
ones are all magical.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And then in the morning we met downstairs, but Eisen basically said we need to go to a private room now, and we all went into Storm's room. Eisen pulled out a chair and basically said, "Tokel and Storm, you need to have a sit. You need to sit down." I felt like I was in trouble. And we explained some more information of the incident the night before to the rest of the party. So saying we had killed this man. Oh, I had killed this man. And Eisen said, "This city is not safe for Oasis. It's not safe for us. We don't know what's here. Do not piss anyone else off. Basically, keep a low profile. No more antics."
Yeah.
And it was quite a telling off from Eisen, which I
Yeah,
thought
she's
was
like
really
the
cool.
mother of the group
Mm.
right now, kind of keeping everyone else out of trouble. Do you think it was more because of her curiosity towards airships and not wanting to get kicked off for that?
Oh, 100%.
Or was
There's
it
a
actual
selfish
concern?
reason.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Yeah, it
There's
was.
a 100%
It
a
was.
selfish reason there.
Oh.
I think there is obviously genuine concern for the party, but she really wants an airship. Just without a doubt.
Yeah, I don't blame her.
They're cool.
I don't blame her. Those things are cool.
And then I offered for us to be able to steal one, but that was shot down, I think.
Yeah. But once it isn't Snow that's telling the party off for something.
True.
Is that Eisen and Snow and Mum and Dad at the party then?
Probably.
And from the discussion, Snow, you received your letter.
Well,
Albert
I
sent you
received the
your letter.
contents.
Yes.
Yeah, I finally got it. I finally got it midway through the session.
I was supposed to send it to you at the start, but I completely forgot until I was reading through my notes.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it's cool. It's not. I mean, it's 100-year-old letters, so there's not really much I can do about it. And I already had met the prince who wrote the letter, so it doesn't really tie up any loose ends. But it does give some more context on what the prince may have been up to, and clues in what he did all those years ago that people were talking about.
Do you think it
Trident
inspired any more questions from you? Because that was the intention.
There was that bit where he's implying that Snow would be the one to kill King Rayford. Was that his name? King Rayford?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, Rayford, right? But honestly, Snow would have been missing for 100 years by the time he wrote that letter. So I don't know the reason why the prince would write that after not seeing his friend for 100 years. Maybe he just wrote that thinking that, oh, he would get it. He would somehow get it. But obviously I didn't get it until 100 years after he wrote the letter. Over 100 years after the letter.
Okay, that's one way to look at it. Yep.
So, again, it's kind of like a timing issue there, and yeah, it's implying that something happened. Whatever he was planning to do already happened. So it was already too late to do anything by the time I got that letter. So I don't know. And then, of course, the prince is a big loose end in and of himself. I haven't seen him since our encounter in Trident, and I haven't even seen any trace of him. So I don't even have a direction to go in. I don't have a lead to go in regards to that.
Okay. For context reasons, Snow at this very beginning, there's like a 200-year gap between when he left his hometown and woke up unconscious in Danithar. So do you think it's just like a random reason that the prince would send you a message in that 100-year middle bit?
I mean, obviously he was expecting, like, he was probably trying to consolidate his forces to make an attack on Danithar, and he was just sending letters out left, right, and center, in hopes to, bring back the lost sheep, as you will. So that I mean, it's a good reason to send a letter, but I don't know if it was a good idea to really expect anything to come of it after not seeing your friend for 100 years.
Okay. Huh. I I think the only thing I can say is you should think on that a little more. That's all. That's all. That's
Anyway,
all.
that's my thoughts at the current moment, having just read the letter.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess I'll think on it, but I may not come to the conclusion you think I will.
I think with the dots I've laid out so far, there's only a few conclusions you can come to, and once you think about it a little more, it might click, it might not, but we'll see.
For an elf,
We'll see.
isn't 100 years like a blink of an eye? Like, is it
Yeah, I
Tolkien
think
style elf stuff?
I don't know
No.
the age limit Albert has his elves at, but
So
D&D elves live roughly 750 years.
Correct.
Oh, so
Yep.
it's still a significant period of
So
time. Okay.
Yeah, it's a long
Because I
time,
didn't
right?
know if it would be
So
like 100 years for relevancy's sake. It would be like me just posting you a letter now. It takes like maybe a week to get there, to get to you, and it's like, oh, that's not too
yeah,
long.
no. This letter had been sitting there for a long time. But basically, I like to think that elves don't see time the same way shorter-lived races do.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, you could say that 200 years to an elf is more like 20 years, but I think elves see time much more abstractly than that. I don't know quite how to explain it because I'm not someone who lives 750 years.
Hmm.
But yeah, for
Not
someone who
yet.
lives that long, I don't think. Yeah, I think
Time
time.
perception would be distorted. I think
Yeah,
this is
it would
it's
be
relevant,
way
right?
a lot different. Yeah,
It's if you only live 100 years, 10 years is 10% of your lifetime. But if you live 1,000 years, 10 years is 1% of your lifetime, kind of thing. So yeah, that makes sense to me.
Do you think elves just kind of have like issues with learning if it takes them like 200 years to learn what a human does in 20 years?
I've read some
Anyone?
threads on this. I've read some threads on this. I think people like to fall back on the argument that elves want to learn everything perfectly, and in order to learn it perfectly, you got to spend a long time doing it. That's the argument. Whereas learning it perfectly is not the only way to learn something. Like you can learn something
Haphazardly.
like humans can learn like a faster way, but it's like people like to say that's a more unstable way. It works, but it's not as stable as the elves would learn it. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So
Something
so
like
would,
that. That's what the
would an elf take, let's say, so for example, Storm, he grew up, he did 3 or 4 years of Bard College, and then he's now cracking in and whipping out spells. For an elf, when do they try and journey out? When are they an adult in that cultural society?
I think they mature mentally at 100 years old.
Ooh.
So your 3 and 4 year Bard's College might be decades long for an elf because they might not only learn the songs, they might learn the context of the song. Who are the characters in it? What is the historical significance? How does that play into the tune of the song? Was the song played differently when the song was made? And all this other
I know how Storm
minutia
would
that doesn't matter. That doesn't actually matter to play the song, but they want to fully understand it or something like that. That's no means my opinion of it, but I think it has
Just the
some
consensus,
grounds,
yeah.
although it doesn't really explain everything, right? Like elves would be godly characters if they learned
Yeah, can you
the
imagine
same way. Yeah.
Yeah,
if an
true.
elf learned like a human?
So we're not just
Jeez.
saying that elves are a bit slow.
That's what I was going for.
But yeah, I think they're more perfectionist to the extreme.
Yeah, I like that. That makes a lot of cultural sense as well.
Yeah, yeah. It fixes my headcanon just a little bit more.
What
So
the
after
elves they can't read until they're 150.
this is like 7-year-old kid who's like, dude, come on.
I have seen wonders you have never seen, but I cannot write it down.
After the letter, you guys decide your game plan, right?
Yeah, so Passage does a fake housekeeping call on the room, and we all panic, and Oasis hides under the bed while we're all expecting her to, do a druid thing and turn into like a bee or something.
No.
Nope, she hides under the bed, which is funny again. I think Oasis has got some quite funny moves. And eventually, it's Passage, and he gives us a bit of a lore rundown of Huria. So the political structure of the fact that Huria is run by 11 primes. 10 of them are anonymous. I think they're called the Shadow Council. 10 of them are anonymous.
Oh, just the council.
Just the council. 10 are anonymous. 1 is unmasked, and the unmasked one we learned was the headmaster of the college called Adwarin. And then he said that he assumes the unmasked ones are probably leaders of guilds or that kind of thing. And we asked him to name a bunch of guilds. I managed to get mage, temple, thieves, assassin, something, druid, bard, and then you rattled off so many. I really liked how you delivered that one, to be honest.
There's a lot of guilds in this town.
I like how you delivered that, because it was very much like a sigh, and then he rattled off like 20 different guilds in like real quick. I was trying to write them down.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time just writing random guild names out and just kind of searching and stealing other people's ones.
That's cool.
It was good fun.
And then he also told us of the Artificer, who's it's like a sub quest of ours to find this Artificer, and he's on the tail of Huria, towards the tail.
Can you remind us of why you guys are looking for this Artificer?
So Kragan, I don't know if you guys have spoken about him yet, but he was
we touched on him.
He was our home base, our character of. It's probably our favorite guy for a few sessions when we're in Trident and cruising around that time. And a few different things happened with him. But some of the main ones were, I think he played a big part in Snow, in kind of a bit of story arc you had there, were he was harboring a lot of snow elves who were refugees.
Yeah, basically he was an innkeeper who owned an inn called the Sleeping Giant, and that was kind of like a pseudo front for a refugee camp for snow elves. And he had been working with another prominent snow elf and one of Snow's old friends called Rio. And a lot of stuff happens in between when the party arrives and then when they leave. Basically, Rio's killed, spoilers, and Kragan loses an arm defending the refugees from a demon attack, I think. So Snow and Storm took it upon themselves to make a replacement. So Snow basically did wrote up some designs for like a prosthetic arm, Sakura style, and then Storm wanted to see how he could imbue that with magic.
I think you've done most of the work there. I kind of, as you were designing it, I thought it would be really cool to try and learn how to imbue bardic power through written script or through pictures, rather than just through music or word. And I honestly, I think that's a whole skill set that isn't going to be learned by the time we meet this Artificer. So Storm is just there for the good times, I think.
He's the investor, the moral support.
Yeah, the persuasive one. He'll speak to the Artificer and make sure it happens.
Because he will roll high.
He will roll high. And the other small sub thing with the Artificer, we've got a little goblin called Strongjaw in our party, and he's got no voice. I might see if the Artificer has a little artificial voice box we can whip him up. DM might not want to voice that character though.
Ooh,
the deadweight NPC gets a voice. Nice.
So, I don't think I ever told you this, Lewis, but Tolgut, he had a goblin voice, and the party at some point picked up a ring of diplomacy, which pretty much automatically translates whoever's wearing it into common.
Right.
And his goblin voice was just just kind of like garbled throat voices.
Yeah.
And his common voice was this deep kind of posh British accent. And I'm afraid that if we go down that route, Strongdraw will have something equally insane or strange. So who knows?
Well, it depends how you want to do it. I mean, he understands Common, like he responds to Common. Storm can speak Goblin because he spent a lot of time with Torgut, in his backstory, and then yeah, I mean, you whip that out how you want to. I'm gonna try anyway.
Does is Strongdraw like a red herring into a bigger plot? But so far, he hasn't done anything. He hasn't done much of anything other than being, other than like being the party's butler in some cases. But he hasn't really had much impact on anything other than I think Ryan has kind of doted
Adopted
on him a
him.
little bit.
I'm his dad.
But yeah, I obviously you probably have bigger plans with him as you do with all your minor characters. But yeah, I'm just waiting to see when he'll come out, because he could have easily died in the
Multiple
15
times.
sessions
Yeah.
we've had him. So hey, anytime to bring out more plot, man, now's the time before he dies suddenly.
Maybe it's okay that the one character you guys are in love with isn't like involved in some secret conspiratorial plot. Maybe he's just kind of a goblin that you guys found
Just
and
a
he's
goblin.
chilling.
He's pretty chill. It would be
Or maybe he's the eye of the big bad guy and he's kind of writing down all these notes and sending it to Hesseldane every night. Who knows?
um
No.
Ooh.
I was thinking like maybe it would be really cool if it was he turned out to be some like crazy evil necromancer who had his voice taken away so he couldn't cast any of his spells anymore or something like that. And then we restore his power and he just teleports out. Just see you later.
See ya, bitches.
That'd be funny.
Yeah, if you guys recall, when you first met him, he did have he wasn't exactly shackled, but he did have bruises and like scars of just evidence of being some kind of slave at some point.
Yeah.
But I don't think you guys ever went down the route of exploring that, so it's kind of left untouched for now. But if you guys do want to go down that route, I got something written.
I think it's hard for the party to communicate with him in detail, since he can only communicate through gestures and that kind of thing.
Yeah, there's only so many avenues to communicate with him.
I think it provides a
kind of treat him as a baby.
yeah, because it does add a cuteness, and the way you play him as this cute. I have a cute goblin in my brain when I think of Strongjaw.
He's pretty cute. He's pretty cute.
And the way you act him, he is kind of almost a goofy, cartoonish character, which I think is a nice reprieve from having like, like a passage. He's still quite a serious character, very judging character. Whereas Strongjaw is very much in it for the party. Well, it seems to be that way anyway, and isn't too judging in our actions.
Yeah, he's just a follow along. He's a tag along.
So sometimes
Friendly
it's nice
little
just to have
tag
an NPC that doesn't have much to do, just cruises along with you.
Yeah.
It was really surprising that I'm pretty sure me, Toku, and Aizen, because we had a bunch of quote unquote deadweight NPCs in our parties for a long time. And then after that incident that happened at the mountain, we were like, okay, no more NPCs. We're not taking any more NPCs. We can't take it anymore. And then it became especially the case when we got up to 7 players. We were like, oh my goodness, the party's huge now. And then all of a sudden, we have like 3 NPCs in our party.
I got rid of Hevroth last session, or the 2 sessions.
Thank God.
I think that was a nice send off.
Good on you.
Yeah,
I think he went to the farm
He went
where
to the farm.
where all your pets go when you're a child.
Well, that's the thing. I kind of saw it as an opportunity. I was like, I was thinking about it, and I wasn't really sure where does Hevroth's story sit. He's a slave who's gaining his independency. We've taken him away from a town where he's being hunted, and then it kind of seemed like a fitting end for that NPC to. Yeah, and he might pop up every now and again or something.
I mean, was he really trying hard to be independent? I kind of get the character of Hevroth. He's been a slave probably all his life, and all he knows how to do is follow orders. So, following the party because we told him to just felt natural to him.
He looked me in the eyes when I told him it's his choice to go to the farm, and he decided to go to the farm. That was nice.
Yeah, some part of me thinks, oh, okay, maybe he has some character. Another part of me thinks, Maybe that was a nice way for Albert to just get rid of him
Look,
for the
I
time
definitely
being.
wanted to present the opportunity for him to go, because I don't want to be, to be honest, I don't want to be concerned with, you know, Ubanian Empire is chasing Hevroth. If we can shift him off out of the way, like significantly out of the way, maybe that resolves that that part of that plot line, as well as removing some of the NPC weight in our party as well.
I think it's definitely a good way to go about it, especially since it connected to NPCs you kind of already care for. So like, it was like a trade-off really, because it was you putting trust in her and her putting trust in you.
Yeah,
it was. I think it was a good way to go about it. I think it was a really good way to go about it.
It felt very natural. So after passage, he leaves, and we did our party rundown of, you know, what are we doing here. Oasis and Tokul decided to go to the bestiary, where the barkeep Ty of the Drunken Drunkard had said there's someone there that might be able to help you. And myself, Snow, and Eisen decided to go to the college. One, to pay the fees for Izette's children, and secondly, to investigate or get some information on the Oathbreaker. I had the idea during that conversation to also get everyone's visions written down again, just to make sure, just in case there was someone there that could help us.
Lo and
behold. So we kicked off. We'll follow Snowstorm and Eisen. So we Maple eventually joined us as well. The player came back into the session at that point, but we got to the college, and we went into the admissions and paid the fees for Igmar and Junior. We found Igmar hadn't been at the college for 4 months due to unpaid fees.
4 months.
And so, you know, still don't know if he's dead or not. I'm sure I'll follow that up. And after paying, there was a character there, Cedric, in the administration halls. Now, Kevin, you have a lot of backstory with Cedric, and I have
not so much, but he's a character that comes up a lot. Just because his whole stick, I think he didn't actually become a character until we started memeing on him, because when we first saw him, he was in this town called Leyhurst, I think. Leyhurst or Guildford?
Leyhurst.
I always get them mixed up. But Leyhurst, right? He had this barkeep job in this rundown part of town. He was just super depressed. And then I think I said something like, oh yeah, he's just some college kid, like, so depressed that he has to eternally work to pay off his college debt and graduate or something like that. And we just ran with that. And that eventually became a part of the character. And a lot of stuff happens. We end up kind of screwing him over with some deal with him and a succubus, because, I don't know, apparently he hadn't gotten laid before, so we tried to hook him up with a succubus. And then Tokul tried to hook up with a succubus and ended up getting fucked. Not in a good way. And yeah, some stuff like that. And then he would come back every now and then in various jobs. And when Snow saw him in Trident, kind of felt remorseful about what had happened to him, what we ended up doing to him. So I made a promise to him that I would make it up to him somehow. And now he's somehow in Huria. He somehow gets there before.
Explain that.
He somehow gets in Huria before us.
Explain that.
I don't know. You explain it. You're the DM. You made him go there.
The last time we saw him, he was the admin at the Adventurers Guild. I think this was my first or second session.
Yeah, that was in Trident.
Yeah,
we left Trident to go to Huria, and he's at Huria now.
I had zero. Honestly, I didn't even register him when I was, you know, as you wouldn't register, you know, an admin at an Adventurers Guild generally. But it was only in that session. He was gone after that, because when we went back into the Adventurers Guild, it was a different person.
He was gone.
Yeah. So he must have you know, it took us a few weeks to travel to Weirdwater and back and all that kind of stuff. So he had some time.
It was a day's travel, I think, to Weirdwater. So technically, our whole tenure in Trident was only a couple of weeks. Yeah.
He had some time. He probably got there. He's just settled in. His
Yeah.
apartment's still got boxes.
Yeah, I
in
mean,
it.
yeah. I mean, if he had just left before us, he would have just gotten there.
Yeah.
And how is he getting these jobs across the country? Is there some like
He
Axian
interviews really well.
job board
Who knows?
on magical internet?
There's
You'll just have to ask
there's a
him.
mundane version of the Adventurers Guild. It's called seek.com. And
Seek not adventure. Yeah, he's.
Yeah.
If we really want to go into it, I think the first time was in Leyhurst. He was just a barkeep, and then you met him again inside the Baron's Manor as a dishwasher or a server or something.
Oh, yeah.
And then it was Guildford with the succubus, which you traumatized him for life, by the way.
Yeah.
And then Trident, and now Huria.
Hmm.
I believe that was all of his appearances. Yeah, I don't know. I think he's a very interesting character because he also has developed things every time he meets back with your characters. There's remnants of the last interaction you had with him and how it affected his life. But yeah, we'll see where he goes or if he stays in debt forever.
I think those
I
characters
don't
are
know.
always cool. Having a couple pop-up characters that develop as you develop. It shows the world moves around you and you have consequences of your actions. It's a very easy way of showing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's also that part of what we learn. Basically, I don't know if we already went over it, but Snow learns that he has a 500 platinum debt
Yes.
to the college because of something he did. He broke something that belonged to a professor called Toravir, who was a very influential professor, and Cedric had dated his daughter, so maybe that had something to do with it. But I feel like it was like an in-game response to what we talked about last podcast, or what happened last session, where you like instantly paid off Igmar's and Junior's
Yes.
debt because you were friggin' loaded.
Yeah.
So there was like no tension. I remember saying something like, there was like, it would have been more tension if we couldn't pay for it. So I would just simply tacked on a number, made it plat. Now we can't pay for it.
Yeah, that's
now we got to
that's a
find
lot
another
of
way to
money.
pay
I think
for
you
it.
guys can afford that.
The
If you really cared, you could afford that.
I must admit, last night when I was listening, I think I misunderstood because I heard the conversation with, this professor has raised my fees, and I thought because I was dating his daughter. But you started saying, and obviously missed the second part of that because when he started saying he broke something, I'm like, did he break his daughter? I was like, what did he do?
He's a villain.
Yeah.
No, apparently dating the professor's daughter was like just something that
Big
was
no-no.
happening at the time. And I don't know what the correlation is between that, but he broke something, and that ended up screwing him over.
Yeah.
So
Well, we took on that information. I think we wrote down who that was and who we needed to see, but we
Podcast.
prioritized the other two people.
Can you
we
close it,
found out
please?
about. So we found the location of the headmaster at Warren. He was he's generally found in the library, we're told, and we also found out a crystal ball scholar or a vision reading scholar called Madame.
Yeah, like a seer.
Yeah, Sia. Madame Adhoste.
Ad Frost.
And so as we left the admissions hall, that's when Maple joined up. He had a glow up. He had his, he didn't look like a homeless man anymore.
Oh hell
He had on
yeah!
some good duds, bit of a
Mm.
haircut, I think, and then
I think a lot of characters are switching into their desert alternate unlockable outfits, as
do
I
I need to
joke.
find my Hurrier unlockable outfit now?
Yes, you do.
I've already got.
I
I've
think
already
if-
got a suit that when I
I think
click it
if you-
changes color. What else do I need?
I think if you search up Rakshasha, which is kind of like an Indian deity-inspired tiger person,
Oh yeah.
I think that might be a look you could go for.
Okay. Oh, we'll look into that. We'll see what happens. We're
But
we're,
Fashion
I-
choices.
we're Hurrier busy.
I
Right
like
now.
the idea. I like the idea that you have to conform to you have to adapt to the place you're in. So in
Yeah.
Denethar, we just kind of wore whatever was temperate for us, but now
We're in a desert.
in Huria or in the desert, it's hot.
True.
So you gotta dress so you don't overheat and die,
Yeah,
Definitely.
it's
and
like
also and also blend in.
it's a minor thing, but it really helps kind of build the world and immerse yourself in it. I think it's nice. I think it's nice to see.
Well, I haven't had time to go shopping yet. We've been very busy. We've got a lot to do. Um, Yeah, so Maple rocks up. He's in his unlockable outfit, and we headed to the seer's office. We managed to get some of her time, and she took my hand onto the crystal ball and interpreted my vision, giving me a location. So my vision was a towering tree up into the sky, the size of a mountain, with a golden apple on top of it. She couldn't answer whether it was metaphorical or a literal vision, but what she could tell me is that it is in a hidden place in the ancient gardens.
Yeah, gotta go that way.
The living jungle, which is where the Tabaxi are from in Axia. So back home for me. And so it's good. It's good to get more information on these visions. They're so broad. I mean, the other guys, you have an idea of where you need to go, but you didn't get a vision specifically. You were kind of told. Eisen.
Yeah, I was an exception. I did get a vision, but it wasn't necessarily an objective type thing. It was more like an introspection into Snow's past and his actions and things like that, or more like a reflection on those things. It wasn't like, this is the thing you have to get, this is the thing you have to go to,
right? Whereas pretty much everyone else in the party has had that bar Maple.
Yeah, they've had a more literal or symbolic vision,
except for Maple,
what they need to do.
And
except for Maple,
Oasis believes she's found the location of her vision as the giant mountain on Huria's back.
She does,
which she
does indeed.
Found out has magically locked ruins in front of it, which is kind of our next stopping point after, I guess, next session. That's where we'll probably start.
I really hope we stay in the desert for a little while and explore like all the different stuff that's in it.
Me too.
Because we've been in Denethor for so long, and we've seen all the generic fantasy stuff. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but like it's so refreshing to be in a new place where stuff stuff is different. Got airships, we got like these, we're on the back of a huge turtle, which is crazy to think about it.
And we already learned there's three of these, three major cities.
Also, I know the turtle isn't moving at the moment, and I'm not sure how long it's going to be stayed parked at Adventure Station. But I would love that, like, when it starts moving, like every now and again, the place would shake.
Yeah,
and
that's definitely gonna happen.
People were like, I'm not gonna notice it at all because it's a normal thing, right?
But we'll be like,
everyone will like, holy crap, earthquake!
And I think that's really, I really like the change in setting too. I'm tired of walking through forests. I'm just taking a brave stance. I'm tired of walking through forests.
You heard it here first from the Tabaxi himself.
I am a bit bummed that some of our objectives lead back into Denethor. I know mine leads back into the capital, which I'm pretty keen on seeing the capital, but I have to go back to Denethor when I could be going to other exotic places. Like I'm excited to see after the desert, after we've had our jaunt in the desert, we get to see the ancient gardens. I don't know if there were any visions that lead into Ivoryvale or the more mountainous parts of Axia. I don't know how many provinces or biomes there are in Axia. But yeah, I'd love to have a whole continent-wide jaunt.
Like a tour.
Yeah.
I was thinking what we could do with this Sia is, we'll spend some of our time in Huria and get each party member in to have a chat. And if we can actually get locations like I did, we can literally pull out the Axia map and go, we need to go here, and like mark it. So we kind of have an idea of where we need to go, and we can plan that journey over a course of time.
Well, I think
obviously the concern is the bad guy.
We could. I mean, it could be done in the form of Oasis's quest, right? That could take us all around the desert, like because obviously there's this lead that I'm a bit confused. So there's Kane, right? Is he responsible for was he like a part of why her village was massacred or something like that?
No, he was just another victim.
It was another victim, right? So she's trying to look for him. Oh yeah, I remember, because she's trying to look for him because he's like some older male figure in her life. And she's trying to find out why, her village was massacred, who did it and all this stuff. Obviously, you gave a hint that the primes did it, right? Well, one of the primes ordered the execution, but there was like, I don't know if I misheard, but there was like another party, a part of that, who like influenced the primes to do that, or maybe I'm not hearing that right. What was the deal with that? Like, it was just one of the primes, right?
Uh, the info dumper Kaya did allude to the at least one of the primes being in on it, and that there was a very specific name. I believe Goldtooth Zerm was the kind of like
Goldtooth
the
Zerm, yeah.
executioner of the whole thing, the guy who went around massacring and slaughtering all these water genasi.
Yeah, and it could be that, like, in our quest to find this gold tooth or whoever was behind this, like, we find gold tooth and it leads to another thing and it leads to another thing and it turns into a huge goose chase around uh the whole country, which would be cool.
Yeah, I like the
Maybe.
idea of expanding on that. I'm actually really interested to see if this mountain is the fulfillment of that vision for Oasis. I'm really keen to see what happens there and what the implication is once a vision is fulfilled or
Well,
an
it could
elected
be
is
just
chosen
like,
or proven. Sorry.
yeah, it could be just like a jumping off point. Like, you have to get here and like do a trial. And then now you're like doing this is the real
Oh,
thing.
this
The
is
real thing starts after that.
Uh-oh. These gods are real difficult, I'll tell you
It's a
that.
tutorial.
Yeah, it's just like the first test of like, can you just find a place? And then we'll test your power.
Maybe you'll have to go there to find out.
Yeah, I'm keen for that. So we did that, and then I'll cut over to Tokal and Oasis, who head out to the Bestiary, a druid guild, I believe.
It's just kind of like a druid kind of slash coexistence guild, so a
Okay.
lot of animal races.
Yeah, and Oasis, rightfully so, they entered in, and rightfully so, Oasis was very much unsure of who to trust when she walked in. There was a lot of tiefling, tabaxi, loxodon, ganassi, just a bit of everything that wasn't basically a human or an elf. Sounded like,
Mm.
which is cool to see a lot of new different races. I'm very excited about seeing loxodons in a canon
Yeah,
sense.
one of my favorites.
I've never really played around with them much, so I think they're really cool. And basically introduced herself, showed she was a water genasi, and got shuffled into a back room to speak with the leader of the bestiary.
Yeah, she's getting shuffled to a lot of back rooms recently.
She has, and rightfully so. She's got a 500. Is it a 1,000 platinum?
Something around those lines, upwards of 1,000
A
platinum.
big old amount of money on her head, and
That's a lot of money
Storm
on
might
her.
want to take that. I don't believe.
That's a lot of money.
Cedric,
Yeah, you're
Cedric
gonna
might
flip a
turn
coin?
up with a knife and just try to sort himself out. And so they basically had a conversation. The leader of the guild, which I found was interesting, said he's had water genasi come to him, like a few of them come to him, and they all disappear. They all go missing.
Yes.
Soon after speaking with him. However, the conversation kind of ends with them joining the Bestiary Guild for a bit of protection and a safe place to stay. And Oasis still doesn't trust them, so they leave via the window rather than leaving through the front.
Can I talk about that
Yes,
for a
you
second?
can.
I I really like how every time she enters a building, she like scopes out the place for like
Yeah.
exits and ways just to escape, and like every single situation she's kind of been in, regardless of where she is. As soon as she realized she's getting hunted, she's like, all right, I need to know how to get out of here.
Yeah, it's like military.
It's really good to see.
Yeah.
It was really nice to see.
I also like that in Huria,
yeah.
I don't think she's left a building through the same place that she entered it.
True. That's actually very true.
The weird thing was, obviously Oasis was like wild shaped into a bird at the time, so it made sense for her to just go out the window. But why did Toku have to do the same
It's
thing?
Toku.
No, she wasn't a bird at this point. She was in human form. She was
Yeah, she jumped out in water
and
genasi
then
form.
she turned into the bird before they went to the next place.
Oh, I thought she was the bird.
No, she was Ganassi there, because she was in a hooded cloak, and that's how she showed it to the receptionist, who then freaked out. It's like, oh Jesus, I need a manager. But when they jumped out the window, they were walking along, and they decided to go find Clestil Nerexius, thank you, who is Tokal's aunt in quotes, the
Yeah, quotes aren't.
Quotes aren't.
Not
This
not
is
quite,
this
but
is the meat. This is the meat of the session. I
Yeah,
think
this was
this is something I really want to talk about.
a big moment, and I think it had a bit of an impact on Tokal as well. But basically, they decide they want to speak to Klestil to get some more information on the Iron Fortress, who's Klestil's mother, I believe.
Yep.
And as part of the main Oasis, my whole tribe has been killed kind of quest. So this is when Oasis turns into the bird and is hopped on Tokal's shoulder, and Tokal walks into the raucous laughter and buffoonery of this cobalt blue
Cobalt Cutlass.
Yes, the Cobalt Cutlass, and this band of mercenaries of blue Dragonborn. And he's immediately greeted by Klestil. And you know, they exchange pleasantries, and after that point Tokal turns the conversation to he was kind of unsure. He really respected Oasis's privacy in that situation. Very unsure of what information to divulge and what not to. And in the end, he had to bite the bullet and ask about the Water Ganassi. And in the conversation, you know, turned to Klestil saying, "Yeah, I would hunt the Water Ganassi. You know, I'm a mercenary. It's a lot of money. Like, I would do it." And so Tokal realized that he had really not walked. He had walked into a bad situation with Oasis at that point. And one of you two might need to take this. How did that conversation turn towards the party and willingness to die for each other?
I'm a bit fuzzy on the whole the overarching plot of that conversation, but basically Albert might be able to fill it in actually. But basically, at one point, Klestil asks Tokal, you know, "Are you willing to die for your party?" Which Tokal obviously said, "Yes, I am." And then she flipped the script and she said, "Are they willing to die for you?" And that really stumped him because he wasn't sure. And I remember out of character, he was like, "Hey, did you guys ever say that you guys would
We
die?"
all shook our heads.
We were all like,
It was silence.
Yeah,
Actual silence.
Actual silence. Can we just address the fact that Klestil just went like, "Hey, you come here," and then stabbed him in the heart like one of the Kobold Dragonborn? I felt bad for that dude. It's like he could have had a family.
She did to make a point.
I know, but
I
man,
think
what a
that point
waste.
may have been made more eloquently, but you know, it is what
I
it
think
is.
that was. I think it was really impactful. But yeah, the fact that when he said, "Would you guys be willing to die for me?" To be honest, because he couldn't make that decision in his character, considering his relationships with everyone, and he asked us in person. You know, I wasn't really. You know, it needs to be how he interprets his relationships. And not just, you know, he wouldn't be able to ask us in that situation. So I'd have preferred it if he did.
It could be that the party is willing to die for him, but he doesn't know in his heart if that's true, right?
Yes.
Because it's not explicitly said.
The fact that he hesitated in answering is an answer in and of itself.
True.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, if you know, if we when the party learns more about Storm and his backstory, I don't think Storm would necessarily die for anyone in the party right now. And I don't know about Snow's relationship with the party in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the party, there's a big gray area in the party, and we're starting to get there where the party's started to mesh and gel, but I think there's a long way to go before there's a real like friendship. Right now, it's more like, hey, you know, we got some common goals.
Yeah.
Let's just work together for the time being, and you know, there's some sparking friendships
friendly,
here and there.
yeah.
You know, we're friendly, but we're not close. We're not tight.
No, and you know, getting to that point of like brotherhood, that the pack that Tokal talks about, and you know, that's a step, that's a leap that's got to be taken, I guess.
Okay. I'll tell you guys what really went down. So Tokal did go up to her, and he pretty much directed questioning towards her mother's old party, which consisted of Kragan, Rio, Kane, and the mother. And Kane is the Water Genasi, and so he started questioning about him, and Klestil kind of tensed up at that, and it's pretty secretive information to her. So she said, "I'll tell you as long as you can prove that like they're your packmates, like you're doing this for them and they do the same thing for you." And since he couldn't prove that, she didn't say
Right.
anything. She just kind of shoved him out. It was it was really interesting to see Oasis's reaction to that as well, because I believe she just kind of flew out the window at first, and then when it came when the chips fell down
Mm.
and she asked, "Would your party die for you?" Oasis came like she came right back in. She came right back
She
in and
flew
just
onto
kind
his
of
shoulder, right?
stamped onto Tokel's shoulder. Yeah, which is really telling of something. I mean, she goes into it a bit later, but that was it's definitely interesting because there was that whole argument at the very beginning with Tokel and Storm, and seeing that kind of come to fruition, where he's kind of doubting his party's if his party actually has his back or not.
Mm.
And
In regards to, sorry to cut you off, but in
No, go.
regards to Dragonborn culture, it's starting to come out a lot more as Toku is encountering more people related to his past and his homeland.
Yeah.
Do you ever brief him on like kind of the culture notes you make up?
Never.
You never brief him?
No.
Is there a reason for that?
I've tried.
You've oh
Okay.
No,
So
I mean,
you just expect him to just roll with the punches.
and he
as they
does,
come through.
and
Mm.
I think that's kind of his character too, because he left it, well, not exactly an early age, but he definitely wasn't as educated as a Dragonborn should be by the time they leave the kingdom. So he is kind of this naive, not quite knowledgeable of
But
of things go.
it's his own culture though. There's a difference between education and like just absorbing the culture you're raised in, right?
It's definitely because I like to believe there is a big difference between being raised in royalty and just being raised as a normal Dragonborn. So there's a lot of cultural differences between just that dichotomy.
So you trying to lean into him being like super sheltered and everything.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. But even still, like I'd make the argument that because you're royalty, that makes you even more binded towards the traditions of your culture because that's what is expected of you because you represent your country.
Correct. And I think, well, if we're looking at things right now, you'll see that a lot of Dragonborn kind of left even prior to Skildresh kind of overtaking the throne, overthrowing the previous king. And maybe that is telling of something that happened in the past or the previous king's customs or new traditions or whatever. But we'll just have to go into that when we come to that, I guess. I don't know.
Okay.
I really like that, the very kind of simplistic bestial packmate hierarchy where everyone will just kind of die for each other if they demand it. It's interesting.
It is. It's cool. And it's very cutthroat, which I like, and which seems representative of kind of a lizard folk or a lizard person.
I mean, that guy was totally gonna be like revivified like right after those guys left.
Oh,
so
really?
I don't know. I mean, they're mercenaries. Of course, they have like a priest like chilling somewhere.
A bunch of diamonds and a priest.
Okay, that doesn't make it so bad. I was like, hey, what
It
a
was a
waste!
lot of
What a
impact.
waste to wait, just to waste a dude like that.
But they,
I mean,
yeah.
the message is more like this guy trusts me with his life. Like,
Do you think?
I know he's gonna bring me back.
I know that, but like, it would make sense if he was just like a tiny pawn in like a massive army, and like the leader just slew him like that. That makes sense because there's like a million other guys to replace him.
Mm.
But in this sense, it's because it's a lot. It's like
It's
a
like
tiny
one of
knit
7
group.
mercenaries.
Yeah, one of 7. You lose
The
a
family.
big chunk of your fighters there.
The
They're
family.
probably real good fighters as well.
But yeah, now that I know that
Yeah,
he's probably
that makes a lot more
gonna be
sense.
fine
Yeah.
after that. It doesn't make it does. It's not as bad. It's not as bad.
she's not that crazy.
Do you think Oasis flew to Toku's shoulder because she would die for him, or because she wanted to show support in that situation?
That is ambiguous.
Well,
That is however you want to interpret it.
yeah. I'm just trying to think.
I think
Yeah, you go.
it could be that she flew on his shoulder because yeah, it seemed like he was just getting cut
A
down
vulnerable
verbally.
moment,
So
yeah.
he's like, "Hey, I'm here for you." But it could also be that, "Hey, I wanna prove that lady wrong. I wanna prove Crystal wrong. So I'll come in under this moment."
So she
you
flew
know?
into the fan.
Yeah.
do the same thing.
Suicide bird.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
to think that it's more she was trying to prove Clestel wrong by saying that, making an unverbal statement saying that, you know, she is willing to die for Tokul. But it could be possible that she just felt bad for Tokul and just like came on there to cheer him up.
This is something I really want to talk about, because after this very scene, they go back to the tavern and they have a discussion about what just happened. And Oasis, she very clearly states that she lost her family a long time ago, and that the party right now is like family to her, and that she is very willing to die for any one of them. And I like my heart, like outside of game, it was like, oh, wait, what's happening? My heart, why is it so sad? Why am I feeling something right now? And I don't know if I guess no one else really picked up on it that much.
I did, and I'm glad you brought that up, because it's just absolutely slipped my mind, which it shouldn't have. But yes, it was very clear that she, or Oasis, is very attached to the party. And at this point in game time, the party's been together like since Oasis joined to now. What, 6 months?
Yeah, I'd say 4 to 5 months, so a little less than that. But I think it goes back to her upbringing and kind of how she was raised. Not exactly alone, but she didn't have many companions growing up that weren't like animals or whatnot. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's an ass pull or anything. I think she very actually believes that she would die for the party, which is insane to me, really.
I like how some of the party members have pretty similar backstories, like they were cast out of their families or their homes for whatever reason. But I think you made a comment like how many different ways you could play that, because she's obviously from a place, you know, from a loving family and everything, and then all of that was suddenly taken away from her by someone else. And so she's like desperately trying to like cling on to the remnants of that, and she's using she's not using the party, but she sees the party as something akin to that, so she's gonna latch on to that. Whereas like Tokul and Snow have pretty similar backstories. That if you think about it, they're both some sort of like noble from a faraway land, and there was some overthrow of the original power. And I like to think, cut a long story short, Snow was raised as an outcast in his own family, and then he joined this party of other outcasts, so he seemed to fit in there. And Tokul was like probably more similar to Oasis in that he loved his family, and that was all taken away from him from someone he thought he could trust. You know, I'm not so sure about the other party
Storm
members.
might have the most, I guess, vanilla backstory there is then. Storm grew up with a brother and his mum and dad. Mum and dad didn't return from the mum didn't return from a hunt one day, but you know that's kind of what it is in the living jungle. And then as he came of age, you know his brother left to pursue his career, and then Storm came of age and then left to become a bard. And that's kind of what Tabaxis do. It was very much a standard cultural thing. There was no.
I mean, for the record, I think that kind of backstory is more unique than the exile / outcast / my whole family died backstory.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just really interesting how people kind of come from the same place, but they react to the environment around them very differently. Like Oasis, she kind of clings on, like she takes you guys as family, but you guys kind of have this kind of not exactly cold but distant kind of feeling with each other.
Mm-hmm.
But Oasis has the exact opposite, which is really cool to see. I don't know.
And I think it also comes from, you know, you consider it, Oasis is an older character and probably has bypassed that distant thing. It's not as important to her as a person because she's got that age, she's got that wisdom. You know, just like if you speak to a 70-year-old, they probably, you know, all that initial face barrier probably isn't there because they just don't have time to deal with that anymore. And I think that's a really nice way of looking at it. Whereas then you've got these
definitely
these characters like, you know, Ice and Snow who have been alive for an ungodly amount of time, and it just seems like it's like their events of their life. There's so much that's happened to them that they are like jaded from being connected to people. Whereas Tokul and Storm are very young, immature kind of characters. I think both of them.
But they're all beautiful in their own
in their own
ways.
little ways.
Yeah, and crazy.
So after
Uh,
that tavern meetup, we all meet up back at the college, and we go to speak with Adwarin. In the library of bookshelves, you need to use magic to raise the bookshelves to the next floor, total of 8 floors, and as you get higher and higher up, it feels like magic suppression is kind of happening the higher up you get. So my interpretation was you basically have to prove yourself to be a really strong caster to be able to get to the top floor where Adwarin was.
what did you guys think about that whole sequence?
I liked it.
Snows is probably the only, other than Ryan, is probably the only non-magic user in the party, so I didn't have too much impact in that. But I like to think of it less as a try, more of as a deterrent. Like, hey, I put all this stuff here so I won't be disturbed.
Yeah, true. Actually,
by
that is
people
how
like
it came
us.
across when we spoke to him. Because we got to the top and we managed to, trick he's an Arakora, is that right? The librarian?
He's a Kenku.
Kenku, sorry.
So Arakokora have wings, but Kenku are just the wingless crow types.
Right. So he was a Kenku, who I thought you described him really cool, by the way.
I thought he was a bird, like a literal bird.
He's a bird person.
But the way you described him, I thought was cool. He was twitchy. He was, he didn't really respond. He was talking back like a parrot would, for example. And then I really enjoyed that interaction and that kind of more unique take on a character. We got that first.
He was fun.
Pardon?
He was very fun to build and play.
And we got up a few floors. I managed to roll decently on an Arcana check and get us up a few floors, and then Tokul Oasis took her sugar glider form, and Tokul just absolutely threw her up to like the 7th floor from that point. Just yeeted her.
This is like a repeating tactic now.
It's very funny as well.
The old sugar glider throw.
And on the way, Oasis, as the sugar glider, was pulling books out to create mess, and the Kenku was basically raising the stairs, grabbing the books on the way to put them back, and we followed him up, and he didn't look far too pleased by that at all. He was unhappy that we had just tricked him into getting up more floors. And the last floor, we tried to channel our magic, but it didn't work out too well because of average rolls. It was just terrible.
Yeah.
11 average.
I think I brought down the average with like 2.
And then what I thought was, I think I rolled a 24 on that, and we got an average of 10. I was like, what happened?
Team.
But then what I thought was really cool was that we came to a point where it was very much a homebrew DM cool situation, which is Eisen suggested expelling spell slots, or expending spell slots to channel raw magic energy in a form that actually makes us use something that's required.
Yeah.
And I like that you allowed that to happen and made the DM call that is a pure channeling that can happen, just like Arcana may be a pure channeling of magic.
Yeah, it was just a very interesting, innovative idea.
I think so. And
It's not the first time Eisen tried to use like a spell slot for not casting a spell, but for like
just raw magic,
doing something.
Yeah, just like RP purposes.
I think if you remember when he tried to convert Madeline, he was like imbuing
Contact the gods.
The blood vial with the magic.
Yeah,
cool.
to contact his patron.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, we expelled spell slots. I didn't use. He was trying to get us all to use 5th level spell slots, and I didn't use mine. Maple didn't use his. I don't think. Oasis couldn't cast, and Tokul only had a 3rd level spell slot. So we managed to get the stairs part way up, and we eventually climbed up after some trials and tribulations there. We got to Adwarin's office, and
Hold on.
sorry.
I did kind of throw out the bait because you guys were very adamant in not using those 5th level spell slots. I was like, hey guys, there's not enough power to power this thing up.
I refused.
And yeah, I was like, all right, either Oasis has to transform back, or these guys have to use their 5th level spell slots. And you guys were just like, I'm gonna jump the gap. I'm like, oh, okay, fine.
We were casting, and then you were like, maybe one of you needs to jump in, or you need to increase the amount of power.
Wink, wink.
And then And then Maple and I think Maple was like, "How big's the gap?" And I think the wizard definitely managed to climb and leap this gap.
He got like a 16 on his acrobatics check.
Oh, yeah, we
jeez.
all climbed up, and we stumbled. We cartoon fell into Woodwaren's office.
Headmaster's office.
He's an old Loxodon, reading many books, and he wasn't very receptive of our breaking or entering into his room, I should say. And it was Maple trying to cast a spell, wasn't it? That he counterspelled.
He tried to use Mage Hand to close the book
Correct.
that he was reading.
And Adwarin counterspelled it, but then as we managed to start talking, Adwarin started to cast a spell and Maple counterspelled it. So it was
Classic.
that was a bit of wizard dirtiness right there. But yeah, then the Loxodon cast another spell, which was some kind of time skip or something like that, so he could read his books without being disturbed.
Yeah, he stopped time.
Yeah, because it just looked like all the books shifted to one side apart from a few that he was reading.
Mm-hmm.
And then I essentially begged, I groveled for 5
You think
minutes.
at that point you'd just be like, all right, we'll just wait for this all-powerful wizard who can stop time, right?
Do you think
But you just
think
kept going, huh?
No, I think you made a pretty good point where I was pretty impressed when you made the point. It's like you're only extending this encounter
Yeah.
the more you put us off. And I was like, oh, hey, you stupid wizard, you're looking pretty petty now, aren't you? You're looking pretty petty now.
How's your intelligence now, wizard?
He can obliterate you with one spell, okay?
But the fact that he was willing to use a 9th level spell just to avoid talking to us, just probably like that probably plays into the vainness of wizard and like the how do you call it, the smugness? No, it's
it's like a disdain,
the
like
snobby,
snobbiness, yeah.
the snobbiness of a wizard, which I think is pretty cool character moment. But yeah, it's pretty fucking vain. It's pretty fucking vain and petty to do that.
But I'm very much leaning into, especially with our level 9 boosts. I'm trying to be more persuasive as a character, and I mean, I'm a talking character anyway, by far the most talkative of the party. But trying to come up with actual reasons or of a persuasion rather than just being like, I want to persuade, or which I haven't done too much of in the past, but I really want to do that thing where it's like, hey, you're a busy man, and I get that. I'm trying to be respectful of you, but we got directed here. It's so short. We could solve this now. He ends up. I think he made me do a persuasion roll. I got like a 29, which was beautiful, and he gave me 15.
29.
For a 29 persuasion, he gave me 15 seconds to talk. And I think I fit the sentence perfectly.
You nailed it.
You
nailed it.
I was counting, and you got as you finished, I hit 15. I was like, holy shit, that was actually
very happy
really
with
good
that.
timing.
And basically, I spammed out all of the information I could about us being elected, having marks on our arms. We want to find the Oathbreaker. Let us know what you got, kind of thing. And he simply gave us the directions: 8th floor, 3rd bookshelf. I didn't write down the last bit.
I think it was like 5th from the top or
4th
something
or 5th
along
from
those
the
lines.
top. But that one will be unlocked basically for us. So at that point, we said cheers, and we left to try and stay respectful to him. And that was
Oasis was like, what about the water
I
genasi?
looked at him and I said,
what about my
I had 15
Hail.
seconds, and your issue isn't as big as our collective issue. Was my response to that. Yeah, and then we left, and that was the end of the session there.
Yeah, that was a fun interaction for me. That was definitely me experimenting, because when I kind of default to like low voice for commanding characters, so I really wanted to experiment with like pacing, or like the speed at which someone talks.
Yeah, because he was quite slow to talk, wasn't he?
He was real slow to talk. I definitely tried to take my time with that. It was fun to do.
I
for
liked
me.
it. He's a Loxodon at the end of the day. I expect him to be very calculated the way he thinks, and I think you did it well.
Yeah, it was definitely fun. I didn't get to describe. I don't think I got to describe at all what he looked like or anything like. He's just like Loxodon wizard guy.
We walked in with a mission. We were like, we don't have too much time. I like that he basically went, "You're in a library. Why didn't you just read some books first?" And we're like, "Well, because you're here." It's like being in the business and working as like you're working as like the receptionist, but you have an issue, so you go straight to the CEO. It's the same thing.
Help. And they can fix it. They can always fix it. What did you guys think overall of the session?
I thought it was a good introduction to Huria.
I think, yeah, it's a great introduction to Huria. I would love to explore more of the exotic parts of what makes Huria different from another city, other than it being on the back of a turtle. But like, just more like, you know, what's desert magic like? What's the Hurian culture like? I'd like to explore more of that. So I think this is a good jumping off point for that. But the best part of this is just seeing how much the roleplay is just emerging by itself without, you know, anyone needing to kind of push the boulder. You know what I mean?
Yeah, everyone's engaged.
Like, it seems I've mentioned it before, but it seems a lot more natural now that there's like multiple plot threads going on, and like, yeah, the roleplay just seems to come out naturally from that, which I like.
Yeah, it's somehow working. On the note of the unique Hurrian magic, Kevin, I mentioned this a very long time ago, but when we were talking about cities in the desert, I mentioned a city where everything is decided on gambling.
I gave you that idea, didn't
Yeah.
I?
Yeah, it was from a video game. I forgot which one it was.
It was
Ni
Ni
no
no
Kuni.
Kuni
Ni no
2,
Kuni 2.
where everything is based off of a gamble, and I think you played it already, right? And you saw that city, yeah. So
And Passage was like, hey, that entertainment district's pretty. You don't want to go there.
Oh yeah.
So wink, 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 wink.
Well,
This is the city. This is the
I
city.
think I want to go there because that's where my bard guild is.
oh, so it's not, you didn't make it into a whole
I didn't
city,
know.
but you
No,
just
I
made it
didn't.
into a district. Yeah.
Yeah, the idea was too out there. I don't think it would have worked with the more serious tone I was going with the city.
That's cool.
But it's a part of it. It's a part of it.
Yeah, I think this
Okay,
is
I'm glad to
an
see-
interesting environment you've introduced to us. You know, we've got a turtle where half of its shell is this like wilderness mountains, and the other half is the city. And
There's so much potential.
Yeah.
There's so much potential.
very excited to explore.
I am also excited to explore. It's very fun writing it as well. I actually want to ask you guys like a DM question real quick. Like a real serious DM question. So for context, we've all had campaigns we've run. Kevin has had the Legend of the Five Rings. Lewis has had the Pirates campaign, and those went for at least like 10 sessions each, right?
That's about right.
So they
Yeah, I
were
think
pretty long.
mine capped at like 11 or so. So yeah.
Yeah, I think mine was between 8 and 10 or something like that.
So I have this deep-seated kind of scratch on my back that I can't itch DM fear that I don't know if you guys ever get this, but like at the end of sessions, you just kind of think, did the players have fun this session, or like did this specific player have fun this session, or like maybe I didn't do something right because this person doesn't seem like they were too interested or whatever. Did you guys ever get anything like that when you were DMing?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, all
Yeah.
the time. I think before the Legend of the Five Rings. Oh no, the very first session of Legend of the Five Rings. I think it was just you, Albert, and Lewis.
Yeah.
You guys, I definitely probably wasn't intentional, but you guys showed no indication that you had fun at all. Like, you guys just seemed really confused the whole time. Like, oh shit, I'm doing a terrible job. What? I should quit now. I should hide in a hole. Just quit now.
I think it's because Legend of the Five Rings was a complete new rule set, like with the dice and with all that kind of stuff, and that was just getting used to it. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I think 100% right, and that's why I like to, especially after our sessions, because we would kind of hang out for a little bit, is just ask, and and just say, how was that? Did you enjoy it? Like, kind of do that like session 42.5 where you go like, did anything you hate? What did you love? What's the what's your feedback? And that's a really good way.
That is
a turnaround on that.
That is essentially what this podcast is all about. But that is a perfect idea, and I brought it up last podcast as well. that like you need that like after talk to really like see, you know, where the campaign's headed. But the problem with those is people tend to not want to hurt other people's feelings by being honest. And we're trying to stay away from that too much. Like we're trying to provide constructive criticism without attacking people too much. Although sometimes we could go overboard. But yeah, people are just afraid to give that criticism because they're afraid, oh, you know, that makes them feel bad, and they may not want to play or DM anymore because of that. But
it's just building up a trust base.
Really, that
it's like this is a safe space.
that is
There's no judgment. It's just let us
really it's when that's those talks are when the campaign improves the most out of everything, is like because people might not even know what they're doing isn't like the most optimal way or isn't the most fun way to go about it, or they're even making other people's experience bad because of what they're doing, you know what I mean? So yeah.
Okay. So in general, the advice you would give is that just talk about it honestly. Just give good, honest criticism if the DM asks for it.
I think so, and I think it's the case of like, let's say last night we finished our session, and you know, a couple of us stuck around. Some people had to go straight away, which is fine, but a couple of us stuck around, and it's that case of you could use that opportunity to just go like, what did you like? What didn't you like? Let me know. Even if it's just calling out there and message it to me, or you know, whatever it is. Just throw out the question and make it a routine thing. Like during the week, if someone has feedback on something, just send it to you. It doesn't need to be straight away, but I guess making like just telling everyone you're open to that, I think is the way to go.
Yeah, and I think you're right when you said it's about building trust as well. People, and I mean, like giving criticism and like accepting criticism takes a good amount of vulnerability in order to do so. And then yeah, when more people get more comfortable doing that, then I'd say like at the start, when you start doing it, you have to do it a lot because, you know, there's a lot of kinks you got to work out. But then as you keep going and as the campaign improves, the satisfaction improves. So you actually have to do it less the more you do it. Like the more open you are to doing it, the more comfortable you are doing it, the less you actually have to do it because you become more satisfied as things get resolved and whatever.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Because I think when we resumed the campaign, like how long ago was that now? Maybe a few months ago. I don't know.
Wait,
I was.
No, it was not a few months ago. It was like end of last year.
Was it really? It's already been
It's like
9 months.
Yeah.
Oh shoot. Yeah, because at the start of that, well, at the very start of the campaign, we at the end of every session, we always went through that discussion, like, what did you guys want to see more of? Maybe we should RP like this next time or whatever. But I think I kind of lost that drive to continuously improve when I first started resuming the campaign again, because after that we really never really talked about the campaign afterwards.
Yeah.
And I think only recently I've been like, oh shoot, I forgot. Like I'm seeing every other player improve in their roleplay, and I'm like, oh fuck, I gotta step my game up too, huh?
I think that's it. But
So,
you also
yeah.
you shouldn't be afraid to take risks. I mean, your campaign is the main one, but let's talk like if we just pirates, for example. I used to just like I would if I saw something on Reddit that was a meme, I would take it and experiment with it in the campaign. Obviously, because it was a like it was like a temp campaign or one we'll use for one shots every now and again or something like that. It's not as it's not as game breaking if I introduce a roll 100 potion table, for example. But
Classic.
as a DM, I think you've also got to have fun and find things that like, you know what, this randomness could break the game, but it could also be really interesting. And if you're happy to kind of tweak some things on the fly just to make sure nothing's broken, you've got to make sure you're enjoying it as well.
I can definitely understand how like you would get complacent being a DM, because DMing, especially when you don't have a lot of experience, it's hard. It's really hard to just do it, right? The act of DMing is stressful and it's taxing, and yeah, it may not be for everyone. It isn't for everyone, actually. And it's easy to get in a rhythm where suddenly it's not stressful or it's not work, but you just kind of like plateau and then you just stay like that. And and the reason why you don't improve is because hey, I'm comfortable doing this. You know, it's not stressful. Why would I want to stress myself out by doing more than all the stuff I'm already doing? And I never really got up to that point. I think if I kept going, like if I had 20 sessions under my belt instead of just 11, I might have plateaued as well, and then just stayed the same until somebody kicked my ass and told me, hey, this needs to improve. You know.
I think I realized because when Pirates was ending, we didn't know, like Axia, we weren't sure when it was coming back still. And so I got to a point where I was like, oh, I need to write some story. I basically had like a few events written up to the point pretty much where you are. I probably had one more session in me. And then I went, oh, what do we do after this?
What happens next?
so I think having that realization where you kind of shit yourself and go, oh, I need to prepare and make sure it's good, and it's important.
Yeah, I remember a few times in the middle of running L5R, I was just like, I don't know, for some reason I just get so stressed, and then like right before the session, before everything started, I would try to recompose myself just before the session. But then the player was like, okay, what's going to happen? What's happening now? I'm like, oh, shit. And then when I got going, it was good. But like leading up to it and then like finally finishing, it was like taking a load off my shoulders. That's how it felt sometimes to DM. So, I can definitely get how it's pretty stressful and you want to get as comfortable as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So it's not something you dread. It's something you look forward to and have fun with. So,
yeah. That was actually, you guys make really good points on that. Back to the Pirates thing. I am so excited to go into that freaking temple, dude.
I know.
Oh my god, what's in the temple? What's in the temple?
Pirates, so Kevin, we decided Pirates is non-canon to Axia. It's in the same...
It's an alternate timeline.
Correct, alternate timeline, which includes, Happy Haycock's taverns and all that kind of stuff. And, I think it's... I'd be really keen for us to jump into it when we have the right crew back together for that. Because
for context, Pirates is a side campaign that Lewis ran when the main campaign was on hiatus, and it's set like 70 years in the future past the events of the main campaign. So Storm is like an 80-year-old, no, he's like a 90-year-old level 20 bard.
Badass.
And we all play different characters. Like I play a Tabaxi rogue. Yes, very, very, very different from Snow, I know, but I play a Tabaxi rogue who kind of I like Dusty a lot because he kind of looks up to Storm as like a grandfather figure, and like he kind of idolizes Storm, even though Storm is probably not the best
Storm's
of examples, but
terrible person to idolize. But that's Tabaxi
but
culture.
Dusty's like
that is how they would view each other. Can we address Boulder?
Hello.
Boulder is one of my favorite characters.
He's so fun to play. He's just so hard-headed.
I was shook when I first, because if you remember, it started as I tried to run Shadowrun, but then didn't want to learn the rules, and it was terrible, and we all hated it. And so I converted it into a D&D 5e by saying, "You woke up from visions.
It was a
dream.
You're now in D&D." But encountering Boulder with my NPCs as a first session 5e DM was one of the biggest challenges I could have faced, because the way Boulder thinks is not how I think at all. So it was like breaking everything I put together. I put some time in and learned, and the events of that campaign were fun. You guys robbed a bank. You went into that big ship that was powered by an angel. And then you made it
had one of the biggest emotional moments we've had out of all the campaigns. It was huge.
That was the last session as well. That's what we ended on.
Yeah.
The perfect cliffhanger.
So I'm excited for that as well. But it's DMing for that kind of stuff is really fun. But I think because I knew it wasn't our main campaign, I was really just flying with it in terms of just, I was throwing random roll potions at you guys. I was, and even the sequence of we got to this island and it was full of gnomes and 3 pirates, which took thirds of the island. and one of the thirds was an alchemist who had basically used coconuts to drug everyone into being chill surfy guys so they don't revolt against him. And remember the surfing sequence? I was playing like the Surfing USA, like,
Yeah.
and like you guys were surfing. Like it was a lot of fun, but it's not serious whatsoever. But I was trying to combine that like ridiculous, sarcastic side with high fantasy, because I remember feedback you guys gave me was, let's just increase the fantasy level. So I had the floating citadel, and I had all this stuff. So trying to bring those two together, because I really enjoy a lot of comedy in a campaign, and unfortunately I think that's always going to come out in me.
Yeah, the only thing I miss the most is actually just the party characters in general. I think towards the end we were just starting to it was just starting to get so tight, and I was like, damn.
The party got tight really quick.
That's a real party.
I think it was because you were forced. You were ship crew. You ran a ship together, and you were forced to work together. And I think one of my favorite encounters is one that I ran. How bad is that? Pat on the back for me. Which is the ship encounter, if you remember, with the mermaid people, where the storm hit you guys.
Oh yeah.
And every turn, the storm was actually on the initiative table, so you guys had to do certain things to control the ship, as well as the storm would either knock the ship sideways, throwing you guys 5 feet, or mermaids would jump on board, or a few other things would happen. And I really enjoyed that.
That was the one with the Kraken, right? And the Kraken would come up and we'd fight the tentacles as well?
That was Rainier's campaign that he ran a while ago.
Ah, shit, okay. I played the same character though,
yes,
that's why I got confused.
Brought him across. But yeah, that was...
Yeah, I remember, because the characters kind of like shifted around every time the storm hit. After that was when we got dragged by the harpoon gentlemen, right?
The harpoon monks.
God damn it. I mean, yeah, I really enjoyed that. Can someone explain to me why we elected the wizard as the captain of the ship?
Because the ship had to be...
No one wanted to take responsibility, so...
What he found out
DeMarcus.
is that the ship could be attuned to, if you remember, and he could sail it better with an advantage if he was attuned to it via concentration.
Oh yeah,
but when he wasn't, it was just a normal strength checks and stuff like that.
It was like semi-sentient or something like
every
that.
Every time he pulled a concentration and attuned to it, it spoke to him. But it wasn't smart. It was just the ship would say, "Grip me hard."
Oh, by the way,
Daddy.
the wizard is played by Tokal, the same player who plays Tokal, so you can imagine how it goes.
It's very funny.
Yeah, I think one of his first.
So
wizards.
it's interesting seeing. I think he set up the character wrong first. He didn't put any wisdom or something in.
No, he didn't put any intelligence in.
He had 18 decks on a wizard.
Oh,
it's actually, I really enjoyed seeing him. I really enjoyed seeing him learn to play a caster while being so used to playing a barbarian, like the tank. I thought that was really cool.
It's definitely a change of pace for him. Bringing us back to the Axia campaign, this probably be the last question, unless do you guys want to talk about anything else?
You've got me if you want to talk about Storm at all. I've got all that information now.
Kevin, was there any other topic you wanted to go into?
I kind of want to keep expanding on the Pale Shadow stuff, but I think we can leave that until another time.
I'm happy to talk about it, but there is one question I want to ask you guys, because one of our other players, I've been messaging the other player recently, and they've been talking about their future trajectories for their characters, or where their character is going to end up in the future.
Who's this?
I can't say it. That's the point. I just want to ask you guys the same question. Like, at the end of this journey, where do you see your character?
You can go first, Storm.
I see Storm is a character that's driven by, to know where that is, you need to know kind of where he's coming from. And he's driven by, number one, he's inspired by the leader of a town who's a great bard. And he wants to become a folk hero. He wants people to know who he are, and he wants his people to trust him. And secondly, he's driven to save his people at all costs. So at the moment, his goals are he sees visions of Hesseldane burning down his entire village and killing everyone he loves. So he wants to gain power, and he's gaining it in unnatural ways. He's making pacts with demons, and he's trying to find these sources of power and just do what he can to save what he loves. And I see that becoming his ultimate downfall. I hope that he manages to complete his goal and save his people, but I do see that being maybe his end, or maybe he becomes a broken person afterwards, and ultimately he becomes a recluse in a mountain or something like that. That's where I see him going.
Okay. Can I just comment on the fact that burning down his home and killing all his loved ones is like a single word for you now? You say it so often that it's just a single string that just kind of comes out.
Just one full word, burning down his home and
Yeah,
killing all his
yeah.
loved ones.
There's no pauses in
No,
there.
I'm just so used to saying it. It's in my brain.
So do you think if you do kind of accomplish the goal of like saving your people and like getting rid of Hesseldane, you would retire from the party, or would you keep adventuring with
I
them?
don't think so. I mean, ultimately, his goal is to bring knowledge and bring to his village and to his people, and he wants to make his village proud and do all that kind of thing, as any young kind of adventurer would, or young bard would. And I think if he manages to save his village and he knows his village is secure, he would first of all have to address what he's done as a person, and then hopefully continue in his quest to gain knowledge and provide for his village. Where
Okay.
that leads, who knows?
Okay. Snow?
So, I used to be a big advocate for keeping secrets from other players, but I'm starting to learn now it's actually kind of more fun to just have the other players know a bit more about you than, keep everything behind closed doors and things like that. So, this will probably be one of the first times I'm talking in front of another player in the party in regards to where I think Snow's going and, where he's currently at in his life and things like that. So, in order to preface where I think he's going to go, I have to start with where I think he is now. And basically, I already spoke about, the how he was looking for the prince. Basically, growing up, he had only a handful of friends. One of them being Rio, who is now dead, and the other being the prince, right, who Snow was sworn to protect. And there was this whole coup. Snow ends up getting killed, and then he wakes up in Axia some 200 years later. And his one objective was to find the family sword, which he has now, and to find the prince to see if he could consolidate, the power and, reunite the elves back at home, because they're having a lot of civil strife and all that. Anyway, skip forward to what happens in Trident. Snow finds the prince, or he didn't find the prince finds him. The Pale Shadow finds him, and he finds that Snow finds that the prince isn't the same person Snow knew him to be. Yeah, he had changed, and now, like, he thinks it might not be a good idea to pursue the prince anymore because the princess has been disillusioned by everything. And basically, finding the prince was like Snow's sole purpose in life. And now that he has found the prince and found that it was not as it was, he's kind of lost in purpose right now. And, the only thing that he has going for him is finding out what's behind these brands and things like that. And he has Maple as revenants from his past, which he's trying to reconnect with slowly. In terms of Snow's future, I think I had a similar idea to Storm in that Snow might turn into like a recluse, or he might just kind of disappear. He might take a boat somewhere and like never be seen again, something like that.
Captain Snow.
And basically, because all Snow wanted to do was bring the prince back to his home and make everything as normal. But when he learned that everything won't ever be the same, You know, his homeland is in shambles. There's a disease or a plague or a blight going on there. A lot of the houses, the noble houses, they're extinct, including his own. And the only things that were close to him have been mutilated, basically. So he's already a broken man. So he's already halfway there from Storm's brokenness and endgame brokenness. And I think right now he's just trying to figure out like what else is there in life? What other purpose do I have? If I don't have my family, if I don't have my honor, my culture, what am I? You know, who am I? What am I? What am I supposed to do? And I think ultimately I want him to be a bit more like, you guys think of the sculptor in Sekiro, how like his whole backstory is he used to be the same as the player character, like he used to be an assassin and do all this stuff, but then something happened and now he's just given up on everything and he's just reclused himself to sculpting stuff. And I think Snow is as of right now, unless anything changes, he might be going down that same path. But instead of instead of sculpting just random like statues and things, he's like, I'm thinking he's more like he makes prosthetics for people who aren't born with limbs or are dysfortunate or disfigured and stuff like that, and he'll kind of be like this quiet philanthropist, you know, traveling around and just helping people wherever he can, but ultimately aimless and ultimately kind of running away from all the stuff that he experienced. So yeah, Storm and Snow, pretty sad characters that end up pretty sad in the end. Huh?
That's rough, buddy. Do you think Snow is kind of distracting himself by just kind of focusing on the whole brand business?
Yeah, I think there is an element to that. But there's also an element of like he's lost, you know, like he doesn't know where to go. Like he's just finding something to latch onto, like Oasis is, but it's not family per se, but it's something else that he can't really define as yet.
Okay. It's very, 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 very sad for both of you, for both those characters, really. Damn. I think
Storm could have had a good ending, but the way I've taken the character and the decisions I've made seem to be pointing towards...
There's always a chance for a good ending.
Always is, but at the moment they seem to be pointing towards a bit of a dark ending or a sad ending.
I think I like the idea of having character endings being bittersweet. Like, it's good in some ways and like some things get resolved, but it's bad in some ways that like obviously this character won't ever be the same again and could never return to a brighter part of their life, while other characters might be, you know, happily ever after, you know, done deal, they're happy for the rest of their lives, while other characters might, you know,
sacrifice might yourself for the greater good kind of
might have sacrificed themselves, or might just get lost, you know. They might just get lost in their own life, and that's how their story goes. They just keep following loose ends until they die.
What do you guys think about like uneventful like character deaths? What if Storm or Snow were to die like a meaningless death? Like they just kind of die in battle one day. They don't succeed in their ambitions or anything. Would you as players be okay with that, or would you be like, what the fuck?
That's the point of D&D. My character didn't survive that encounter, and that's where his story ends. You know.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of tension in that. Like, it really depends on like how much build up there is in the character. Like, if you have a really storied character and like, you know, everyone sees him going places, and then all of a sudden his life is cut short before he can do those things, it actually adds a lot to the drama that's there. But if a character didn't have a like big story going for them and then they just die, no one's really gonna care. Or they might even feel frustrated because they weren't able to harness their potential,
full potential as a character.
Yeah.
I think it's a thin rope, but I'm okay with it. Like, if any of the party members die right now, which probably with an exception of maybe Maple and Ryan, because we haven't seen the full extent of which, you know, their characters can go in terms of backstory and like their goals and things like that. But if like Snow, Tokul, Storm, Oasis die, it'll be a big drama point, and I think we'll see some tears because of that, because we've seen all these characters.
Yeah.
With the fake Tokul death,
and-
we were pretty close. I think all of us were like, what? So
And that was surprising to me as well, seeing you guys' reaction to
yeah,
that.
so if it happens for real, that'd be nuts.
Yeah, it'd be crazy.
Especially because for a lot of us, this is our first character.
Yeah, that's true.
Actually, I think for everyone in the party bar Eisen, it's their first character. So there's an attachment there.
Eisen and Maple, I
Yeah,
guess.
Maple as well. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like been with you from the start. So yeah. So you guys would be fine with these unceremonious deaths if it ever did occur
I
to you.
really think it adds to the
I mean,
experience.
that's life when you think about it. Not everything ends the way you think it will.
Just because.
I guess it's just an expectation thing.
Yeah, we are heroes of a story, but doesn't mean there should be any Deus Ex Machina kind of like, savior stuff. If I get stabbed a billion times, I'm a bard. I've only got 48 health. If I get jabbed up, and that's it.
Okay. Just making sure in case of future events.
Right, I'm going to be more careful now. That's very ominous. Storm is not a cautious character.
I mean, but
Alright.
like, that's not really something you have to get consent from the players for, because that's the nature
That is
of the
D&D,
game,
Yeah.
right?
I don't agree with that.
Because the system is set up that characters can die, and they could easily die if you don't make the right decisions. But I get that some DMs and some players want to play with the expectation that they just want to have a good time and everything like that. But
Yeah.
D&D definitely enables you to kill off people. It's not like an on and off switch. It's always there,
Yeah, I mean I disagree in that, like with every other narrative expectation, it goes from party to party. So a lot of some players, they just want to be heroes. They want to save the day. They don't expect their characters just to kind of die, not exactly off screen, but not like a glorious death or anything. So yeah, I disagree in that aspect. But yeah, I think it's fine in our campaign if people just kind of fall and die, and never come back really. I don't know. It's just something to think
we
about.
haven't had that happen yet, so it could easily change once it happens for the first time, because we don't really know what it's like for people.
I think
just
it's actually
just
pretty
drop
rare
dead.
for no one
Yeah.
to die at this point in like 40-something sessions.
Yeah,
So
I don't know, really. I'm not
maybe
too
it's a
sure
good party,
because
maybe it's a bad DM. Who knows?
I mean, Critical Role had their first campaign. Most of their characters have been alive. I mean, they've died, but they've died after a point where they had the means to bring them back, so it wasn't as bad. But I think in their second campaign, they actually had a proper character death, and that was
Spoilers.
for them.
Alright, we should end it here.
Yeah, a bigger,
I want to say
longer
thanks. I want to
episode.
say thanks to Lewis. Thanks to Lewis for coming on and telling us all about Storm.
Thank you for having me, boys, and I'm glad you enjoy. You like the new theme song I made.
Yeah, we'll link his SoundCloud and his band down in the description below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, please.
Hey,
Send us
mail.
emails.
Hey,
Send
comment. Hey.
us emails. Give us questions and shit. Okay, bye.
Bye.
See ya.